to this week's Facebook Live. This week I'm going to talk about giving you 2 tips to boost your positivity, but they also boost your self-esteem. So you might be interested in working on one or the other, but basically if you work on boosting your positivity, you're also boosting your self-esteem and vice versa. So that's what we're going to be talking about this morning. So let's get into it. The research that we have out there is showing that positivity can lead to a wide range of benefits for our mental and physical health. I think that's pretty common sense as well for, most of us. If you actually stop and think about it, boosting, of course, if you're going to boost your positivity and, how you feel about things, and boost, your emotional happiness, it'll also going to boost your self-esteem, and, it's going to have a knock-on effect to your mental and physical health. Part of that, though, is, and I want to highlight this is very important, is that we do need to be challenging our negative thinking there. So, how we look at things and get to know ourselves a bit better. But we'll talk about that. But the first thing I want to talk about, and even if you go no further, if you don't follow the rest of the video, if you don't bother reading any of the rest of the blog, which is over on www.deborahbyrnepsychologyservices.com, but I'll leave a link to it in the description below. If you go no further, if you just figure out what's boosting my self-esteem and my positivity and what's busting it, like what's destroying it, and if you can start working off that, that would be a good place to start. So I'm going to review them. I'm going to actually read them out. Now, they are listed in the blog, and in the blog a number of them have links on them, where I talk, and I've done a lot more video. I've given you a lot more information on how to work on those particular things to boost your self-esteem and your positivity. So you can go to the blog, click on the links, and start with one of them, and start to work your way through that list to boost your positivity. But it's also, I've listed the busters as well, the ones that destroy our positivity and our self-esteem. And when we're aware of those, then we can change them, and that's important. Awareness is huge, because if you're not aware that something is knocking how you feel, is knocking and destroying your self-esteem and your positivity, then you can't change it. You just can't do it. So have a read of those. They're as equally important. And then really I've posed 2 questions to get you started, and they are like, as I read down through the list, think about like which way or which of the following am I allowing into my life. So am I allowing any of the boosters into my life, or is there a smaller amount of them and a lot more of the busters? So are there more busters in my life than boosters? You've got to really ask yourself that. So let's get on to things that boost us, things that will help us build our positivity, build our self-esteem, and then benefit our mental and physical health. Basic self-care. Now, my idea of basic self-care is probably a hell of a lot different than most people's. It really, when you look at it, and everything I cover in my book, it does cover the first 3 rungs of Maslow's hierarchy of needs. So go and have a look at that. So self-esteem is another one. Self-acceptance is one for, if you accept yourself, and I've done a video on this. Yes, it will boost. Of course, you're going to boost your self-esteem and your positivity, as well as self-love. Good habits, though. Self-soothing habits. Self-soothing habits are good habits. And having more of those in our life is very beneficial to our self-esteem and our positivity. Knowing your limits or your boundaries. I would start with myself. I've just done 2 videos on that over in my mum's group, my free group. And, it's important that we start with ourselves. Sometimes we're the ones in our own way. We stand in our own way, and therefore we don't, we're not setting the boundary. We're the ones not setting the boundary. Or we're standing in our own way of saying no, basically, sometimes. Focusing on your good points, focusing on your strengths, of course. Challenging your negative thinking. You have to challenge the negative thinking. Setting realistic goals. And the key word there is realistic. Are they realistic? Do I want to do them? Or are they somebody else's goals? That's something else that I bring up a lot, that, we need to look at. Is this something I really want to do? In the different areas, get out a wheel of life and have a look at the different areas of your life and say, is this goal really still relevant even for me at this stage of my life? So look at that. The next thing is to accept challenges. We want to be moving to the edge of our comfort zone and pushing it a little bit, a small bit beyond that, to accept the challenge and move it on. Having time off, relaxing, important. Self-praise, patting yourself on the back, even saying, go, yeah, even small things. This was a win of the day for me is important. Affirmations are important. A healthy treats and reward system. That can be part of your self-soothing and good habits. But I've talked about the healthy treats and reward systems before, in place for your realistic goals and how we can use those. And I've talked about using them with children as well. They're a good one for children. So your values, knowing your own values, knowing, what do I think, act, and feel? What do I want in my life? Improving your relationship skills. That's something we can improve on, because we have relationships with everyone, including ourselves. So improving how we do relationships with ourselves, a relationship with ourselves, and then relationships with other people is something we need to continually work on, as well as good communication. How do I communicate with others? So they will all boost, your self-esteem and your positivity. Stuff that busts it, some of them are going to be, very obvious for you. Procrastination, any sort of self-hate, criticism, rejection, any sort of negative thinking or cognitive distortions. Of course, they are definitely going to destroy your self-esteem and your positivity. Guilt is another one, particularly toxic guilt and toxic shame in particular. Stress. This is why one of the boosters is to take time out and relax. We need to be looking at our stress levels. Then not taking risks, no matter how small. That's not shifting out of your comfort zone. That'll actually bust your self-esteem, because you're not moving. You are growing and you think you're staying still. We fool ourselves sometimes into thinking that we're not changing, but we are changing constantly every day as human beings, just even on a physical level. So it's okay to step out a small bit out of your comfort zone, as I said already, but not doing that, trying to contract your world, will boost your self-esteem and your positivity. Poor communication skills. The fear of failure again comes into it. Comparison. I've talked about it, done a whole video and a blog on comparisons and how it destroys. When we start comparing ourselves to others, it's very negative towards us. Overemphasizing our self-limitations. Relationship breakdown. That's definitely one that will bust your self-esteem. Again, the comparison in relation to comparing yourself to others, making your self-worth dependent on what you have in life, the house, car, whatever it is, and how much you succeed and how much you make in terms of money, that is not going to boost your self-esteem. We might think it might, but in fact research is showing that it doesn't. It doesn't actually do that. It actually busts our self-esteem and our positivity. Loneliness, that's an obvious one. I think a lot of people have felt that because of COVID and that. Workplace problems, so toxic workplace. I've done a whole video on that one as well, and how toxic workplaces impact us mentally and physically, and how to leave safely. But the only thing I'd say to you there is both of those lists are by no means complete. But there's an awful lot on there. And as I said, they each have links out to more videos and blogs that I've done. So, feel free to add anything else you want to that list that you feel, no, this is busting my self-esteem, busting my positivity. or it is, boosting it. But as I said at the start, and I posed the questions to you, once you're aware of what's boosting my positivity and my self-esteem, then you can increase it. And once you're aware that there are busters in your life that are really knocking you down, then you can be more proactive in taking some steps to reduce and tackle them. And that's what we want to do. We want to increase one and decrease the other. So, 2 tips. How can you do it to increase the positivity on a daily basis? Other than basic self-care, I always come back to that. As far as I'm concerned, that's your foundational stone, and then you build out from there. But apart from that, one is to keep a journal. Journals are great. I'm not talking about the Dear Diary, but one where you just get the stuff out of your head. You do a brain dump, you get everything out. I do have a kind of a checklist that I have given to my mums on what they can do to help them get the brain dump out, get everything out. And I also mean by getting everything out, it's not just your to-do list, it's not just appointments, it's not all that stuff, but it's all the thoughts, all the emotions. You might start off with, oh, I forgot to make that appointment for the dentist. Oh, and start listing off everything you got to do tomorrow. But then once the initial stuff is up, we start to bring up the emotions and the thoughts, because they're very, very important. That's what you need. And this is why we use the journal, really, is to, once we can see how we're thinking and how we're feeling, we can then read back over it and start to challenge the negative thinking. And that's what we need to do to boost our self-esteem. We need to start challenging that. So by getting up all the feelings and emotions down on paper, your sleep is going to benefit. I've talked about the benefits of doing that just for sleep. And then maybe think of, writing down 3 things you're grateful for. Maybe the win of the day as well. I've talked about that before, is very important. But getting up all that other stuff, taking the time to read back over any maybe negative thoughts that came up that day, some maybe an event that's still playing on your mind, get it down on paper and start to analyze it. A way to do that is to, and I talk about this in the blog, so they are listed out in the blog, so you don't have to, you can go and check them and have a look at them, is to understand what kind of thinker you are. How do you think when it comes to, particularly your negative thinking? So are you the worrier? That's the worst case scenario, because that one leads to anxiety. Are you the critic? Are you always putting yourself down? Because that one leads to low self-esteem. Now, the anxiety is going to lead to low self-esteem as well. The perfectionist is another one. You can't make any sort of mistake, so your stress levels are going to be going up there. The victim. Everything is beyond your control in life. And that leads to depression. But also it's going to boost your self-esteem and positivity. So if you can even bring it down to those 4, the worrier, the critic, the perfectionist, and the victim, and analyze your thinking, your negative thinking, from that point of view, and say, okay, who stepped into the arena here? Was it the worrier stepped up tonight or today for me? What's going on with you? Ask the worrier, what's going on? What's really going on? And then, have this whole challenging them, the pros and cons about that situation, why I didn't speak up, maybe why I'm feeling anxious about the event, and list it out. What's the worst case scenario could happen there if it is the worrier and the anxiety is coming up. So you start to you're using this journal basically to reflect and to analyze and to challenge what's really going on in your brain, and this helps you to kind of see if there are thoughts that are linked to similar events and people, and then you recognize, are these my triggers? And if they're a trigger, they're going to keep you trapped in there. So for each one of those 4 that I've talked about, and you identify some traps, some triggers, and these are keeping you trapped, then you've got to ask yourself, and there's a whole list of questions, and I'm not really going to go into all of them, but for each of them, you can ask yourself, what kind of evidence is there against this? What type of worrier am I, and which does this thought belong to? Take your time. Take some time out to practice and have patience with yourself, because you're learning something new here. But as you're using the journal, what happens is the more you do it in your journal, the more you do it on reflection, the more you challenge it down on paper or even recording. And I have some people that actually record it. They go back and they challenge themselves. What they're doing there is they're practicing, they're learning how to do it, they're training the brain to challenge the thoughts, those negative thoughts, those negative thinkers. And what happens then is you start to be able to do it in real time, and you don't go down the negative distortion route. You don't go down the procrastination route. You don't go down the catastrophizing route. You stop it. It doesn't mean that rumination doesn't happen. It doesn't mean that, the negative thinking doesn't happen. What you're doing is you're stopping it in your tracks. You're challenging it and going, hold on here, that's not necessarily going to happen. And you can bring it back and get on with your day rather than be caught up in whatever the negative distortion is. The thing you got to watch for, we can get really good at this when we're using these journals. We can get really, really good at them. And then we get into the real time and we're challenging it and everything's going well. But what happens is that negative thinking has been ingrained for so long, that and it's had free reign for so long that we have to watch for relapses. We really do have to be watching for relapses and be mindful of it. So try not to stop doing the journaling if you keep it up each night, even if an event doesn't come up, even a particular, if there isn't particular negative thoughts coming up every night, but just to keep the momentum going and just to keep the relapse from happening. It is a good way to do it. Sometimes we get forgetful and we can resort back to the old ways of doing things, and that happens. You just go, okay, it's happened. You pick yourself up, dust yourself off, and you start journaling again, and you start challenging again, and you keep it going. The one thing I said, I did a training with my mums this week, and I said to them, look, if you think of the negative thinker, that negative thinker in your head, no matter which cognitive distortion it's related to, it's a bully. And as long as you continue to carry around that bully in your head, it's going to continue to bully you into the procrastination, bully you into doing, catastrophizing, the black and white thinking. Whatever it is, it's going to bully you into that. So, make sure to start challenging it, to start challenging the bully, that negative self-talk bully, and, to try and get it out, get it quietened down a bit even. And it really does help. I'm sorry this is taking so long this morning. Number 2, what I would do is I would spend some time surrounding myself. This is tip number 2. Looking at, what am I, who and what am I surrounding myself with? So I would look at, positive people, positive supporters. I've talked about those before. Things that's around me, what things are around me, and places. There's a huge, again, you're using your journal for this. The first place I would say start, and there's an awful lot of questions in the blog on this particular tip. It goes through getting to know yourself, who you want to be, what you want in your life, who you want to surround yourself. But in order to do that, you really need to get to know yourself. And there's, as I said, there's a huge amount of questions in the blog. Go and have a look at them. Take your time writing them down. Hunt them all down. Trust your gut instinct. It's important that we start trusting our gut instinct more. It doesn't have to be perfect. The answers are just a snapshot of this moment in time. Somewhere that you can start, this is what's going on for me right now, and I want to change it. So in order to do that, This is where I'm at. So this snapshot, you're taking a snapshot, and when you get the snapshot, then you can kind of ask yourself, well, why do I want to have these things here? In my home, around me. Why do I want to pursue these goals? Are they even my goals? Are they my likes? Are they my dislikes? Are they my values? Are they my beliefs? Or have I adopted somebody else's just to keep them happy? Give it some thought. You don't have to hold on to anything or anyone, because remember, we're changing, and as we change, everything in our life changes. What we want in life, our goals change, who we want in our life, people change, and they come and go in and out of your life. So be aware of that. The point of the first part of tip 2 is to actually build some self-awareness again, and that's important. Then you can move on to considering your relationships. What kind of people do you want in your life? And then again, there are questions there that that help you look at, are these people positive or negative in my life? You get out the wheel of life and have a look and see, is this in each of the areas of your life? And some people will cross over into different areas of your life. Again, are they positive? Are they negative for me? But I've given you a lot of questions in there that you might want to think about and journal about. Don't rush it. Take your time. It's important. It's very difficult to have good self-esteem and positivity and feel positive about your life if you're surrounded by high levels of negative people, because they're really so toxic. And what you want to do is examine that, because these kind of people are high maintenance and they're not good role models for you. So, you want to start thinking, are these people positive or negative? And I give you a lot of questions to have a look at them. And then you want to analyze them and say, okay, is there anybody I can delete straight away? The only thing I would highlight here on this one is family, and maybe very close friends. If they're very negative, that can be very hard to delete those people from your life. It really can. And I've talked about it. I've done a free course in my mum's group on it. But minimizing contact is maybe the first thing you can do there with them. Because deleting anybody from your life, deleting anybody at all from your life can be pretty scary. But it is possible. It is possible to do that and to move on and start surrounding yourself and making more time for people that are positive influence on your life, that are there for you, they're non-judgmental, they'll support you no matter what. That's the people you want to do. The next part of this second tip is to look at your home and your possessions. Have a look about deleting negative objects from that's in your home. Or even look at what's on your desk in work, if you have got a desk, or what's surrounding you in work. Don't be keeping things just because, and you can fill in the blank there of what the just because is. If objects have bad memories for you, why are you holding on to them? You've got to ask yourself that. Get rid of them. Sell them, recycle them, do something with them, get rid of them, get them out. If you can sell them, then you can buy things that have more meaning for you, and that are better. The one thing, though, I think that holds us onto those objects can be guilt. But don't you owe it to yourself really to start deleting that from your life, deleting those objects because they are bringing up bad memories, and let the guilt go with them. So have a think about that. The other thing there with a home is safety. You really need to have a safe place where you live. We all need that. We all need a safe place where we can live, somewhere we can call home, somewhere we feel at peace and feel secure at night. So again, if you're lucky enough to have such a place, think about each room. Are they filled again with things that are yours? Is this space personal to you? And there should be at least one room there, your bedroom in particular, I'm thinking of, that should be personal to you and that makes you feel safe. Again, get rid of the things that are bad memories. You start slowly. You don't have to do it all in one go, because that's only going to set you up for failure. I would recommend, starting in your bedroom and making it yours, making it, putting your stamp on it if you can. The other thing I would say to you is invest some money in making sure your home is secure if you need to. And get expert opinion on that, locks and things like that. If that, that is important to do that. I've talked about decluttering before and how it really boosts our mental and physical health. So it can be very uplifting to do it. It can be very beneficial to our mental and physical health. And I've done a video on that before. The other thing in all of this, just to finish up, is just to say, look, have patience with yourself. It takes time for to do work like this, because you are stepping out of your comfort zone. But we talked about how stepping outside our comfort zone, small increments, can boost our self-esteem and positivity. Building those new changes can be scary and it does take time. But if we work on it a little bit, it's like chipping away at something, until it becomes more comfortable, then again, it'll boost our self-esteem. Track your progress. This is where your journal, I always say, come back to the journal. Track the progress. Notice how when you do something, how it makes you feel. It should be boosting you. Celebrate those small wins. This is the treats and reward system I was talking about. So celebrate those small wins, because that's going to boost your positivity and your self-esteem even more. So that's it for this morning. I hope you get some benefit out of it. As always, I say, if you have a question, pop it below. I'm happy to answer questions for people. If you want to come and join the mums group, there's loads of videos over there. There's nearly 2 years worth of free training over there. I run training constantly over there. So go and have a look at that. The blogs are there, and as I said, the boosters and busters all have more videos linked out to them. I'll leave a link to it in the description below. Thank you all for watching as always and having patience to listen to me. Sometimes I can waffle on, but thank you for listening. And thank you to those that listen in replay as well, here and on YouTube. And I will see you all again next week. I'm going back to my roots next week, and building awareness on a topic next week. So I'll see you then, and thank you for listening.